So I finally actually did it. I compiled a list of my 100 favorite films of all time. This first episode will cover numbers 100 through 76. Okay, these first 5 are kind of guilty pleasure films of mine, but they just had to make the cut. But I thought I'd group them together just for the heck of it. At number 100 is License to Drive, which I have probably seen an obscene amount of times. I'm Gen X, okay? The 2 Coreys was a big deal. They were a phenomenon. At number 99, we have My Stepmother is an Alien. This has gained something of a cult following over the years, but when I first started liking it, I was considered very weird. But this is where I first saw Allison Hannigan, who has become kind of a major star in several different fandoms over the years. So I think that's probably part of why it has earned its cult status now. So it stars Dan Aykroyd, Kim Basinger, John Lovitz, who is fantastic. I think he pretty much always is. At number 98, we have National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1, which is largely a parody of Lethal Weapon, but there's a few other references tossed in there. The cast, honestly, is quite impressively assembled. You have Samuel L. Jackson, Emilio Estevez, Tim Curry, Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, come on now. William Shatner's even in here. Kathy Ireland is just, it just goes on and on. So it's a very funny one, and you know, it's ridiculous. It's like Airplane and those type of things. At number 97, we have PCU. Airheads, unfortunately, is in another category, which is movies I've seen but don't remember very well. I'll actually be doing a video about that category later on. But anyway, PCU is kind of ahead of its time, because if you watch it now, it seems like it's about the current era, but it's not. It's a 90s film, so there you go. At number 96, we have On the Line, which stars Lance Bass and Joey Fatone from NSYNC, my favorite boy band. Some of you who know me are saying, what about Coloring Bad? Coloring Bad is not a boy band. They are a R&B vocal group, okay? It also co-stars Emmanuelle Chriqui, who doesn't age, by the way. She still looks like this. How dare she? Dave Foley from The Kids in the Hall and News Radio is also in here. Jerry Stiller. Al Green has a cameo. Richie Sambora from Bon Jovi has a cameo. So it's just a really entertaining film. Sometimes that's all movies need to be. So now we're moving on to something you'll probably be surprised is this low on the list. But at number 95, we have LA Confidential. The cast is absolutely stellar here. The only reason it's this low on the list is because it came into my life just recently when I did my David Strathairn episode of Watchlist Wednesday. So as you can see, it charmed me right away and made my top 100. Over the years, it'll probably move up, but this is where it's at right now, 95. At 94, we have Fools Rush In, which might be my favorite rom-com. I'm not sure. I love Matthew Perry. I like Salma Hayek, Penalt as well. They are fantastic here together. Their chemistry is great. Matthew Perry's real father plays his father in this movie, which is fun. Full disclosure, I am not really a rom-com person. So for me to be so charmed by this is saying something. I would say check this one out if you haven't seen it. It's a lot of fun. It's very sweet. Within this case, I actually have the next 2, coincidentally enough. At 93, I have Happy Gilmore, and at 92, Liar Liar. I hate to say it, but I have a low tolerance for Adam Sandler. But Happy Gilmore and another film that's way higher up on this list are the exceptions. And with Liar Liar, it's such a fun premise, and Jim Carrey's fantastic in it. Jennifer Tilly is great. Maura Tierney and Carrie Elwes, who I'm a big fan of both of them. So it's just a well-assembled cast, and the story plays out so wonderfully. So I really like Liar Liar. And it would be higher, but there's just so many things here that I love. So at 91, we have Father of the Bride Part 2. And at 90, we have Father of the Bride. I love them almost equally, but I lean a little more toward the first one. The second one is so great because the mother and daughter are pregnant at the same time. When I was eventually pregnant myself, I rewatched it and the humor was just so much more relatable at that point. So I think that bumped it up in my esteem at that time. If you saw my 7 questions for movie collectors video, you're going to be surprised that this is so low. But at 89, we have The Wizard of Oz. I know, please don't throw things at me. It would be higher, but I haven't rewatched it over the years like some of these other ones. But it still does mean a lot to me because, as I mentioned in the other video, it is the movie that made me love movies. 88, I believe we're at, is Guys and Dolls. I went through a Marlon Brando kick right around the time I was also doing musical theater. So we had kind of a perfect storm here where I became obsessed with this movie for a while. I actually saw a production of Guys and Dolls in San Francisco with my cousins Joan and Kathy and my mother. Lorna Luft, who is Judy Garland's daughter, was in it. And so that was a memorable experience. But this film, the cast here is stellar. Marlon Brando, as I mentioned, Frank Sinatra, Gene Simmons, Vivian Blaine is absolutely incredible here. She steals the show, in my opinion. And this is going to sound weird to say, but it's not a musically musical. So it's like a working class kind of musical versus a, high society kind of musical. And so that really appeals to me. Next up is Christine, which is on this set with The Blob, Fright Night, and The Seventh Sign. Christine is kind of a perfect storm for a horror film because it's based on a book by Stephen King and it is directed by John Carpenter. This was actually the first John Carpenter movie I ever saw. At the end of the day, it's kind of about a toxic relationship. It's just that the abusive partner happens to be a car. At 86, we have The Royal Tenenbaums. This is quite low placement, I must admit, but it's just kind of where it ended up after I shuffled everything around and it looked like the right order. There's a lot of great actors in this, some of whom continued to work with Wes Anderson and some of whom didn't. Kind of famously so in Gene Hackman's case. At 85 has to be E.T. the Extraterrestrial. There's not really a lot I can say about E.T. that hasn't been said by everyone, but it's just a wonderful film. And what strikes me most is how good the performances are by the child actors, especially Henry Thomas. Honestly, I think Steven Spielberg pretty consistently gets good performances out of child actors. It's kind of his gift, I guess. It's funny going through this case, I kind of feel bad for anything that's in this one because, to be the bottom 25. But in the scheme of things, I think I've seen around 800 films. I've logged 700 something on Letterboxd so far. If you think of it in those terms, it's actually not bad. At number 84, we have Finding Nemo. This is my daughter's favorite movie. So I've seen it so many times in her lifetime that I think I've grown more fond of it. And that affection you have tied to things that your kids enjoy. But truth be told, I had already seen it multiple times before she was born, so I can't blame her completely. At number 83, we have Beauty and the Beast, which is the first animated film to be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. I think it's largely responsible for why they eventually came up with an animated feature award. Just an absolutely stellar voice cast in here, including the late, great Jerry Orbach, whom I love dearly. And it's just so, the songs are so memorable and so catchy, and the characters are so lovable. It's just a fantastic film. Next up is Manhattan Murder Mystery, which is probably a lesser known Woody Allen film. It's the first of his on this list, but not the last. I know Woody Allen is a controversial figure. If you look into the history of the movie industry, it would ruin a lot of movies for you. So I'm just going to not go there. But this is a fantastically hilarious film. Diane Keaton is amazing here. One of her underrated roles, I would say. Alan Alda's also great here, Angelica Houston. And Woody Allen himself plays Diane Keaton's husband. And their chemistry together is always great. At 81, we have Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. This was one of my mom's favorite films, so I saw it a lot. In the VHS era, as I like to call it, we didn't really have that many films, so the ones we watched a lot. So this was definitely one of them that was in heavy rotation. It's actually directed by John Hughes, which is funny because I was never really into his teen comedies, but this one is special. John Candy's performance is spectacular here. He makes you laugh and he breaks your heart very effectively for both. And Steve Martin, of course, is always reliable, and he's great here too. So the situations are funny. It's almost like a sitcom, but a movie length, you know, because there's a lot of situational comedy. At 80, we have Some Like It Hot, which is also hilarious. The performances here are absolutely stellar. Marilyn Monroe, Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis. This is a Billy Wilder film, and he's pretty legendary for churning out some great stuff, so it shouldn't be too surprising. In my opinion, the best thing about it is Jack Lemmon. At number 79, we have The Brothers Bloom. Much like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, it is a comedy that has kind of a sudden tragic turn. And so it's funny that they ended up so close together here. But The Brothers Bloom stars, brace yourselves for the shock, Adrian Brody and Mark Ruffalo. It also stars Rachel Weisz and Rinko Kikuchi and the late great Robbie Coltrane, who you might know as Hagrid from the Harry Potter universe. It's directed by Rian Johnson of Knives Out fame and Star Wars infamy. At number 78, we have Mulan. I fell in love with the song Reflection and performed it a lot in college when I was doing voice recitals and such. You know the guy who sang Break My Stride, Matthew Wilder? He wrote the music for this. There is fantastic music in this film. Donny Osmond especially has a very memorable vocal performance in this movie. The storyline is fantastic and it's also hilarious. Eddie Murphy as Mushu, absolute legend. At 77, we have An American Tail, the first one. I've seen Five Will Goes West. I actually haven't seen these other two. I didn't know they existed until I found this set on Amazon. But anyway, An American Tail is, again, one of those films we had on VHS when I was a kid, and so we watched it a lot. And I probably could recite it from memory, even though it's been many years since I watched it. And rounding out this particular chapter, we have Charlotte's Web, which is another one we had on VHS and I watched a lot. I think this is probably where my love of pigs began, actually. They are to this day my favorite animal. I think the best two things about this are Debbie Reynolds as Charlotte, who has some wonderful musical numbers and a wonderful comic timing on her dialogue. And the other one is Paul Lynde as Templeton the Rat. Absolutely steals the show. So that is the end of chapter 1. So join me next time for 75 through 51. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching.